talk about you and kind of what you do and your upcoming show.
Yeah.
Um, so my first question for you is, how did you get started in the industry? What kind of prompted you to want to do musicals and perform and that sort of thing?
So I grew up singing in church. My grandmother and my mother put me in the choir at a very early age, and I think they saw that I had some musical talent, and so that's really what sparked my love of music and performing. But then in the eighth grade, I got admitted to the San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts, which is where I say I got bit by the bug, and I'm still suffering the symptoms. I haven't let theater go since then. So I've been doing, theater since the eighth grade. And then I went to the University of Southern California where I earned a degree in theater. And eventually, I always knew I wanted to move to New York. But for me, it wasn't until I got through my first winter on tour in Europe and Germany that I realized that my Southern California blood could actually survive in New York City. So I eventually made the trek out to New York, and I'm really glad I did. I've been living out there now for it'll be 19 years this year.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So thinking back to the eighth grade and when you kind of, like you said, got bitten by the bug, did you take
Hmm.
a specific role that really sparked that interest, or did you just kind of love everything about it?
I loved everything about it. As you can imagine, I was an underclassman at the time. So I went to performing arts school that was fourth through 12th grade. I was on the waiting list for 4 years. So when I finally got in the eighth grade, I was really excited about it. And I got cast in the very first musical. They did two main stage musicals a year. I got cast in the very first one I auditioned for. So I feel like
Okay,
that gave me the confidence to keep going with it. And from there, I did every single main stage musical they did until my senior year of high school,
I love it.
which was The Wiz, was my senior year, and I got to play The Wiz.
I
And
know.
I feel like that really touched on me. And it's actually a song that I do a song from The Wiz in my concert. So I feel like that's really what gave me the confidence to move forward with that. And also getting accepted to USC into their drama department there really, gave me the education and the foundation that I needed to move forward professionally.
Oh, absolutely. So talk about that transition from being a student to being a professional in that theater world. How did that work out?
Yeah.
Was it
Well,
easy?
I was fortunate enough that I actually started getting paid to do theater in high school. So
Okay.
there was a great theater that's no longer, and we're actually trying to revive here in San Diego, California, where I happen to be right now, celebrating my birthday with my family.
Yay!
um, but so it was called Starlight Theater, and they were the first people to really give me a shot. And I was in the ensemble of Little Shop of Horrors, and
So
I got my
fun.
first paycheck for that. I think it was like $500 for the whole run, but whatever it was, I was like 16 years old. It was like the best. It was the most,
Oh
money. It was
yeah.
an incredible amount of money at that age. So that really like solidified the fact that I could do this professionally. But to rewind just a little bit, before that, my parents took me to see to New York for the first time right before I started at the performing arts school. So I was like going from seventh to eighth grade,
Mhm.
and I saw my very first Broadway show, which was Jelly's Last Jam. And for the first time, I saw people like me on stage, and I was like, people do this for a living. Like I thought it was
Uh-huh.
just fun. But when I realized that this was a way of life and a career, that's what really like set, the little foundation in my mind that this could be something I wanted to do. And then when I finally started performing at the performing arts school, it really like sealed the deal for me.
I love it. So, do you have a favorite role that you've done in the past that just really sticks out to you?
So I do. I have to say, I think I think it would have to be Cole House Walker Jr. in Ragtime. I got to do it again. So I did it about 12 years ago here in actually in Riverside, California. And then I got to revisit it last year. I did it here at Moonlight in Vista.
So
And
fun.
but like this time with many more years of experience behind me, and post having had a few shows on Broadway, and
Sure.
being a grown man now, and like bringing all of that and post 2020 and all this sort of ideals and energy into the role. I think that getting to do the role at that time in my life and in my career, and after knowing it and loving it for so long, Brian Stokes Mitchell, who's also from San Diego, has been an idol of mine for years. So, and I now know him. from the doing shows in New York and stuff. So
Mhm.
to bring all that into the role now, I actually think has made it my favorite role. However,
I love it.
this two-part answer. I think my favorite role might be one that is coming up. I just did a world premiere of a brand new musical about Billy Strayhorn, where I played Aaron Bridgers. We
Wow.
debuted last year in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, and we have hopes to bring it into New York eventually. So if that does happen to make it to Broadway, then that will be my favorite role.
That is awesome. Well,
Yeah.
congrats on that. That sounds like such a fun project that you're working on.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really incredible. You may or may not know, but Billy Strayhorn was the unsung hero of the Duke Ellington estate. He wrote lots of the hits that are attributed to the Duke Ellington Orchestra, like A Train and Love Came and things like that. So to get to shine a light on his story at this time is really incredible because he's sort of the unsung hero of jazz music, and I'm really looking forward to the world getting to see it.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks.
Okay, so tell me about Broadway. I feel like that's kind of every theater person's goal,
Uh-huh.
that's the big picture for them. So tell me about getting there and some of the musicals that you performed in. Maybe talk a little bit about Motown the musical if you want to, and all of that
Yeah.
fun stuff.
So I got to make my Broadway debut in Sister Act the Musical, which was produced by Whoopi Goldberg, of course,
Yeah.
and starred one of my really good friends, Patina Miller, in the leading role. It was an incredible experience because I loved the movie. I grew up with Sister Act 2, or Sister Act and Sister Act 2.
Mhm.
And I, of course, never thought in the 90s that eventually I'd be making my Broadway debut in Sister Act. So it's kind of a full circle moment for me. From there, I got to do Jersey Boys on Broadway, which I had done for a year in Las Vegas prior to them calling me to do it on Broadway.
Okay.
So that was my second Broadway show. And then I was actually doing Jersey Boys at night when we were rehearsing for Motown the musical during the day.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, it's the dream. We call it double duty, but it's also like the dream for me. Like I'll rest when I'm dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so throughout my whole Broadway career, it's just I've been so honored to be able to actually achieve my the original goal I set out to do. And not only that, but then to get nominated for a Tony Award for Motown for playing Smokey
Yes.
Robinson was just beyond what my dreams even were. And to get to go to the Tonys and have them say my name at Radio City, I mean, and get to perform on the Tonys that year.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade a couple times. It's been quite a thrill ride. It's definitely a roller coaster, but it's it's all worth it in the end.
Absolutely. So, talk a little bit about your Smokey Robinson role in, of course, Motown, because that's kind of all where it started, but then kind of branching out into the Smokey and Me show that you star in and that you are touring now. So, talk a little bit about that and meeting him and so cool.
Yeah.
Just all of that.
Well, first of all, I was so lucky that our producer and the book writer was Mr. Barry Gordy himself, who many know started Motown Records.
Mhm.
But what people don't understand is that Smokey Robinson was the first vice president of Motown Records and wrote many of the hits that put Motown on the map. In fact, "Shop Around" was the first Motown Records hit, which was sung by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles and recorded by Smokey and the Miracles, which is I talk about in my show. But to get to work directly with Mr. Barry Gordy himself, not only on Broadway but also in London in Motown the musical, was just beyond my wildest dreams. As you can probably imagine, I grew up in a very Motown heavy house, as many of us have. And my dad is a huge Temptations fan and a huge
Okay.
Motown fan. So the music had been a part of my life forever. And
Mhm.
to land this role as Smokey Robinson was just beyond a dream come true. I never saw it coming. But once I got the role, everyone was like, "You look so much like him," and I was able to affect my voice to talk like him a little bit. And
Uh-huh.
so all all of that was just it felt like it was right where I was supposed to be at the right time,
Mhm.
and it was a thrill. I mean, we had some of the best singers in all of New York in that show because everyone from the principal cast down through all of the people in the ensemble who all had to step out and be superstars at one point,
Right.
in the night in the show, was unbelievable. It's something that it's a once in a lifetime experience, and so I'm really grateful that I got to do it on Broadway. And then also, I was the only one they brought over to London, so I got to revise my role and
Wow.
have another dream come true, which is to work on the West End and to do a show in London for 6 months. So that was incredible. But the whole time, everyone, I received lots of accolades and lots of compliments for my role. And people had been saying, "When are you going to do like a solo show about Smokey Robinson?"
Mhm.
And I just never had the time, really. As some of my fans know, I'm part of a singing group called the Doo Wop Project,
Mhm.
and so we tour around to many different venues. And so I understood, the world of doing the concerts around the country from that, but I just never had the time because thankfully we're so busy to sit down and conceive of my own show. So what happened was, you may or may not remember, there was a global pandemic, and, and we
Sadly,
weren't, yeah,
sadly,
and
we
we
all
weren't able to
remember.
perform. Yeah, exactly. So as you know, many venues were shuttered. A lot of us were found
Mhm.
ourselves out of work and at home with nothing else to do. So I decided to use that as the opportunity to finally put my brain and my pen and my paper together and to create the show and to come up with the set list and parts of the story I wanted to tell. But then also
Okay.
it gave me the opportunity to sort of tell part of my own story, which I had never really done.
Mhm.
We tell a little bit of our stories in the Doo-Wop projects, but I really got to like flesh it out and talk about my journey from San Diego, California, all the way to the bright lights of Broadway. So that's kind of how Smokey and Me was conceived.
Awesome. So, can you tell our people that will watch this what they can expect from your show coming up on January 20th at the Plaza?
Yeah. So what they can expect is a really good time. I
Yes.
have a lot. So basically, the way it's structured is the first act is a lot of Smokey Robinson music, and then
Okay.
the second act is a lot of Broadway music. There's still some Smokey in the second act as well, but I really like to take everyone on the journey through Smokey's career, basically from what I learned from working directly with Mr. Barry Gordy, and also from reading Smokey's autobiography, and
Mhm.
also from getting to meet him a couple times. He came to the show quite a bit, and whenever he would come, I tell this in my show, but he would wait to say hello after each show he would come to because he's a class act. And there's a funny story that goes, he'd see me and open his big smoky arms and put on that smoky smile and say, "Hey, me."
I love that. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite interactions
Oh my
in life
gosh.
was to have with him, the legend Smokey Robinson, who's still kicking and still touring and still doing great.
Right.
Yeah. So Smokey and Me is, it's his story, but then I also, the and me portion is my story. So I wanted to, people are always interested, I found, from being on the road, to hear about the performers and their backstories. So
Mhm.
I wanted to bring that to the stage too. So I give some of my favorite songs from shows like The Wiz, which we
Okay.
talked about earlier, and from Motown the musical, of course, but also from the musical Hair, which had a really impactful
Mhm.
it was really impactful on my career because it really was the bridge between California and New York, in that I got cast in this European tour of Hair the musical, which I was on for 3 years right out of college, and that really gave me the confidence and a little bit of change to make the big move and the big leap. So I sang one of my favorite songs from Hair in the second act as well. So it's really just a celebration of great music and Smokey's and my story told through song.
So cool. Well, I know
Yeah.
we're very excited to have you, and we just can't wait. Could you offer any advice to some young budding artists that may want to venture into theater or music or dance even? What kind of advice can you give them?
I think I have lots of advice now, but I'll try and narrow it down to the few points. I think one of the most important things for me is to always keep working, never be satisfied, and never be done. There's always something to learn. There's always the next level, but also as I've learned recently post pandemic, there's more skills you have to adapt. I never thought I'd have to learn how to set up a ring light and cameras and like be taping my own auditions and like all those sorts of things. So you have to roll with the punches and always just be a student of the craft, because the craft, as we have found, is ever changing. That's one. The other thing is to always just be someone that people want to work with. I can't tell you the number of jobs I've gotten because people have recommended me, or have at least called me into audition because they've worked with me before. I have friends who have gotten me jobs. I've gotten friends jobs
Mhm.
on projects because I know that they're a nice person. But also, I've seen people not get jobs because people don't like to work with them because of their attitude. So I always say, keep a positive attitude. You're very lucky to get to perform and to be on stage. So you should always enter into it with a level of gratitude so that people find you pleasant to work with, because no one has time for your ego or for your drama. And the third thing I would say is just to always strive to be the best in whatever you're doing. Because I am someone who came from the ensemble and have had the luxury of becoming a principal actor. But even when I was in the ensemble, I was always the best. I never just was like, oh, I'm just in the ensemble, because that as those of us who do theater understand, that's the heart of the show. That's who keeps the curtain up.
Absolutely.
I was a swing. I was an understudy. I had to go on once for a person who died 2 days prior in an emergency situation. So I've really had I've seen it from all angles. And so I think to always strive to be the best at your craft is the only thing you have control over. Because many times I get a lot of rejection, but I know it's not because of me. I know it's because of the circumstances. So to keep a positive attitude about that. And the last thing I'll say is to not compare yourself to other people, and to just stay focused on your journey and your path, because that will really, it can be a mental, it'll really mess you up mentally if you look at what other people are doing. Now, it's good to have some ambitions and goals, and that you have to, aspire to be something. So you have to look at what other people are doing, but you can't compare yourself and where you are now to what other people are and where they are, and just keep yourself focused on your path.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's good advice for anyone, really. I mean,
It really is. Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, is there anything else that you would like to tell me about, or tell people who are going to watch this about, whether it's about you or the show or anything?
I just want to encourage people who are planning to come, or first of all, those who haven't planned yet to come to the show, come to the show. It's going to be great. And when you do come, feel free to respond, to clap, to have a good time. There will be times where I ask you to sing along. You can get up and dance in the aisles if you want. I just want us all to have a really good time and to celebrate this wonderful music of Smokey Robinson and of Broadway.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
And we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, I guess.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yay. Well, thank you so much again. Have a good one.
Thanks. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.